Welcome back to Our Heritage Reads. This is Being Married by Azizah Idris, read by Hafsah Tilde. Episode 8, When Tomorrow Knocked. Hauwa's world is changing. New books, new faces, and a quiet knock at her heart she didn't expect. Maybe tomorrow isn't as far as it once seemed. Even though Aliyu's wives lived separately, they had been learning the hard way. The drama that ensued over the years at Aliyu's household had always remained the gossip of the town. Moving on had not been easy for Hauwa, but she chose that path and stuck with it. Over the years, everything faded into the haze of time. Malam Hamma had been ridiculed as the man who allowed his daughter to have her way. First, by breaking her home, then dragging her husband to the court. As if that weren't bad enough, he let her a free rein to pursue her philandering nature, joining the Western institution, shunning her primary duty as a woman to pursue the pleasures of this world. Hauwa was too engrossed in her studies to pay heed to all the gossip around town. Now, 4 years after her release from Aliyu's marriage, she had never felt more content. Or not. That was her thought when she walked up to the man standing near the old tree trunk stationed in front of their house. She wondered how many no it would take before it registered to the men in this town that her priority now was not invested in getting her pure heart tainted. But this particular man had his ears tucked under a town. He wouldn't hear of it. And the fact that he was also called Aliyu was totally not adding points to his resume. They had first met in her second year at the Federal College of Education Technical, where he used to go for a research he was conducting. He didn't waste time. When he saw her, he let out his intentions to her. "Welcome home, Gimbia Hauwa," he said, and she felt like sanctifying her name. He just ruined it by the utterance. "Please, Malam Ali," she began, and he stood there smiling, because she could as well keep quiet and he will do the repeat for her. He had memorized her excuses, her threats, her silence, and all shades of no from her. But he wasn't going to relent because he had hope. It was not a baseless hope. He knew she was scared of giving it a second go, but he would be here, and he would show her that he would always be. "I'm sorry for turning up unannounced. You told me not to meet you at school. That's why I came." Malam Aliyu closed his eyes briefly and nodded at her. "I had a talk with Bafa. You can have a seat and hear about it all." Hauwa considered the medium-built man in his blue kaftan. He sported a thin mustache that framed his full lips and eyes that were bracketed with dark thick brows. The man with a personality that many envied. Truth be told, she liked him, but it was her duty to avoid all avenues of getting hurt. That was not the first time Bafa had talked to her in the span of 4 years, with varying degrees of propositions which she had all turned down. Now, he had not said a word. She was sure he was waiting for the big bounce, and it wouldn't be in her favor. "I have a daughter. I have been married before," Hauwa said, letting out a sigh. "You've told me that on the first day, and I told you that I'm all in. What more do you have?" "Your family, will they accept a divorcee? You all know my reputation in town. People talk. Not everything they say, of course, is true, but we don't select what people choose to believe." Malam Aliyu smiled, his voice echoing its sound. "Please, don't pay heed to their silly excuse to cover their wrongs. I know everything about you that there is to know, Hauwa, and I'm ready to take you as my wife. I like the person I see in you." "Then you can go home. We just had our first talk on the street. That isn't exactly going to be a plus mark on your resume." Aliyu laughed. Thank you. When shall I come in? Hauwa rolled her eyes briefly. I'll let you know, she said, and moved into the house with a smile tugging the corner of her lips. Hauwa was seized into a fierce hug by two little beans almost toppling her to the ground. Thanks to the little weight she had gained, they would have succeeded. Ya salam! Sai'mah? Fatin? Is this the way to say welcome? You will cost me my legs someday, Hauwa scolded. But Sai'mah and Fatin, her sister, Amina's 3.5-year-old daughter, were busy chanting, Oyoyo, Oyoyo, Mama Sai'mah. They were so engrossed that they didn't even hear her scolding. Inna Biba, your Ariel needs to stop going to these girls. They are as strong as horses. I mean, what else do you feed them? Don't blame the girls for eating healthy fritters. Blame your sweets and chewing gum. It makes them this way. Hauwa laughed. Good afternoon, Inna Biba. Good afternoon. How is school? Alhamdulillah, Hauwa said, and walked to the clay pot buried halfway into the ground to fetch some water to drink from. Inna is still not back? They must be on their way. You know Sagiru. He must not have gone to pick her up yet. And today is Monday. The hospital will be filled with people. Yes, that is true. Hauwa folded her veil and took it to Inna's room, where she found the duo ransacking her bag for goodies. When they finished their oyoyo, they had snatched her carry-on bag and took it to Inna's room. Now, she looked at them with steely eyes. You little beans, come here, she bellowed. And they all scrambled around the room. The 4-year-old Sai'mah covered her head and face with her tiny arms in self-defense, hiding in the narrow space between the old bed and the new canopy bed. I'm sorry, Mama. Allah, wallahi, I will never do it again. Please, please, Mama. Hauwa let out a sigh. Oya, get out of this room with effect. You should both wait for me outside. I'm coming now to give you a bath. Look at your dress. See, you've already torn the skirt. Hauwa dragged Sai'mah out of her hiding place and smacked her back with a solid smack. Ouch! Ouch! Sai'mah jumped around the room, trying to find a spot to make the smack less hurtful. She felt her bladder getting full at the instant. Fatin came out of her hiding place behind the zinc door and ran outside. Sai'mah followed suit, where she kept up with her breakdance in the courtyard, soiling her pink clothes further by rolling on the ground. Oh, now you want her to come out and break your bones, right? Keep rolling, Inna Biba said. As she approached Sai'mah, she did so just in time as Hauwa stormed out of the room. Hey, shut up! Keep quiet right this instant. Are you crying like this because of the back smack? Don't let me take out my whip. Tomorrow, you will open someone's bag without their permission. Inna Biba moved away from Hauwa. That is enough, Hauwa'u. Why don't you beat or even scold your niece? Stop this, and I think you have a visitor outside who has been waiting for you to come home for the past hour. He was dismissed, and please, Inna Biba, stop defending them. What will happen then? If they do so to a stranger, it is totally unacceptable. I don't differ with you, but you can also pass the message across subtly, without beating the life out of the poor child. What does she know? Some people her age have just been weaned off. She is in school already, Hauwa retorted. Inna Biba ignored Hauwa, taking Fatin's hand and carrying Sai'mah with the other hand. She took them both to her room and left Hauwa fuming in the courtyard. She finally relented and took a kettle to get ready for the Asr Salah. Aliyu Gimba stood hands akimbo, pacing the floor of his room. He removed his cap, fanning himself with it, suddenly hot from the situation facing him. I don't understand this, Maria. Maria came out of the restroom, wiping the water from her mouth with the tip of her wrapper. What kind of sickness is this? Aliyu asked, his head pounding. He had been dreading to ask her that same question for the past week when he first saw her getting sick in the morning. Maria turned her eyes to him. Sickness? You mean to say you have not gotten all the hints I've been dropping? You are going to be a father, that's what. I'm so happy, she said, clasping her hands together over his neck. But the doctor said... The doctor said what? What did the doctor say? Maria asked, aware that her husband had not gone crazy with happiness. Aliyu felt the cold dampness forming on his forehead and all the pores in his body responded. Answer me, please. Is there a problem? Aliyu swiped a hand over his face. I think I didn't understand what he said properly. Now you are leaving me in darkness, my dear. Maria crooned closer to him. Aliyu let out a sigh and removed her hands from his neck and held them down gently. When I first got married to Safiya, it took us 4 years after our marriage for us to visit the hospital because she hadn't conceived, and a doctor here at the general hospital said it was not yet time. We should be patient. So when I got remarried and she informed me that she was expecting, I thanked Allah for bringing the time closer than expected. So I informed my family to pray for her safe delivery. That was when Safiya told me that she didn't mention it to me before we parted ways, but the results had shown that I can't be a father. Aliyu swallowed something bitter, raising his head towards the ceiling. That was why I was convinced that the baby was not my daughter. I thought Dogu Hauwa had played tricks on me. Maria's forehead creased, and she reached out for his hand. I'm sorry about this. It's going to be all right, inshallah. It's all part of your destinies. That's why all these have occurred. But you can always make things right, you know. Aliyu brought his head down, letting out a huff of air. He knew what he was supposed to do, but a certain heaviness engulfed his chest. How could he forget how that woman had humiliated him? He had never been to a court, but because of her, everyone in town got to know of his domestic affairs. He was a very private person and would not take that lightly. And the worst thing was that her parents supported her in her pursuit. There was only one way about this issue, and he knew what to do. A new chapter stirs, and with it, a man who might rewrite what love means. But the past, it never fully lets go. You've been listening to Being Married by Azizah Idris, read by Hafsah Tilde, only on Our Heritage Reads. Until the next time, some tomorrows come gently